Hello everyone! A brand new year brings a brand new season for Paladins. That's right, Season 6 of Paladins, also known as Emergence, is right around the corner and I am here to drop my thoughts on it. Quick disclaimer that the patch notes are apparently not finalized. That being said, Paladins seems to be having a wobbly start with some good and some questionable changes. Now, I always like to hear the good news first, so let's begin with the biggest change this patch. After 5 years of back and forth with the devs, Payload is finally returning to the game as a semi-permanent game mode. Praise Genos, praise Io, praise Wakono, whichever realm god you believe in, praise him. I and many Paladins players are ecstatic for this change. For those who haven't had a chance to play Payload, it functions very similar to what you would find in TF2 and Overwatch. One team is tasked with pushing the payload to the checkpoint, while defenders try to halt their progress. After a round concludes, the teams switch sides and whichever team makes more progress wins the game. What's different about Payload compared to other game modes is that the maps are asymmetrical, which makes for some very different and fresh gameplay. Now, you might recall that I mentioned Payload being a semi-permanent game mode. Well, the way they're handling its return is a little weird. You will only be able to play Payload on Monday through Friday. During the weekend, Payload will be replaced with an LTM. I am not a fan of this decision. One aspect of Paladins that I'm always nitpicking about is the lack of permanent game modes. Well, here's a prime opportunity for one, and instead we get met halfway. Don't get me wrong, having some Payload is better than none at all, but don't more people play video games on the weekends when compared to the weekdays? I just feel bad for anyone wanting to play this mode, but not having time during the week. Despite the questionable queue rotation, the return of this game mode is the best feature of this patch, and its inclusion vastly outweighs what we're about to lose in Season 6. So, what are we losing in Season 6? Well, a lot. Let's start with the most jarring. Splash arts are going. Now when loading into a match, you will see a picture of the in-game skin from the champion gallery. Clearly this must be a recent change, because in the patch notes all the new skins have splash arts. The supposed reason for this change is budget concerns, and money that would have went to splash arts will now be delegated elsewhere. To preface, I am in favor of not making new splash arts if it means that the money will be going towards gameplay improvements or bug fixing. My issue arrives with the removal of existing splash arts. I would like to state that there are so many skins that already don't have custom splash art, but no one is complaining about that. I just think we could have had a best of both worlds, by not making new splash arts for skins and champs while simultaneously keeping existing splash arts in place. It just seems like such a waste to see hundreds of art pieces disappear. According to the devs, they are looking into a way to use the old splash arts as loading screens, which I do like the idea of, but we'll just have to wait and see. The next removal coming this season is the Season Pass. The Season Pass would cost $35 US and would give you the following: an exclusive mount and skin, 1,500 crystals, a 10% discount on future crystal purchases within the year, all the new champions released within the year, and exclusive skins for each of the new champions. Unfortunately, there was no explanation for the Season Pass's removal. Some are speculating that it's because the dev team have no idea what's planned for this year of Paladins, or it's because the Season Pass wasn't profitable. Who knows? Either way, it's gone come Season 6. Another removal, and one I'm very distraught about, is the Bounty Store. Like the Season Pass, no reason is given for its removal, but my guess would have to be bugs. According to the new community manager, you won't lose your existing bounty skins, and I assume some compensation will be paid out for leftover bounty coins. Of the removals this year, this is my least favorite. I thought the Bounty Store was a great inclusion to Paladins and a fantastic way to get players to engage with the game every day. Unfortunately, they screwed with the pricing so much that the goal of playing every day was lost. I do wonder though, with the removal of the Bounty Store, what's going to clog up our Trials of the Realm and Battle Pass? Our last removal going into Season 6 is the Assembly of Champions. To this change, I'm neutral about it. The AOC was always a popularity contest, and some of the delegates who got in either barely interacted with the community or suggested some really questionable changes. On the flip side, we had high-level ranked players who would offer good suggestions, and content creators who would actively engage with their communities to gather feedback and bring it to the devs' attention. The AOC in the past has been responsible for some really great balance changes, but as of late, it seems like the devs haven't been listening to them much, so it doesn't shock me that they're getting disbanded. I just hope that the Paladins devs find some other way to gather player feedback. I worry that we'll get even more questionable changes without the AOC bug in their ears. Quickly skimming through skins, we got Sati and Ceres in the event pass. Epic skins this patch are going to Koga and Vivian. I especially love that Vivian skin. And 2023's ranked reward is going to be the Inventor Pip skin. Called it. Unfortunately for you Pip players, they upped the win requirement from 75 to 100 wins. I am so sorry. But hey, you could just wait for them to put the better looking recolor in the bounty shop. Oh, right. And to quickly talk about the new champion. Nyx appears to be the team's attempt at a new point tank. Unfortunately, her damage is quite low and her barrier is quite small. But I think the basis is good, and with some quality of life buffs, I think Nyx will be a solid addition to the roster. Now we arrive at the longest section of these videos, that's balance. Despite being a whole new season, the changes incoming are actually pretty light. Typically with the season change, we see the balance team reevaluate every champion's stats, with changes sweeping the whole cast. But this time, balance is very scarce. Starting us off is some sweeping changes. Air strafing has had a partial revert, going from 1200 to 1650. This means that you will move faster while strafing in the air. This will pair especially well with mid-air inaccuracy being removed from all champions. This change is a massive buff for champions who have lateral movement. I can't wait to experiment with this further. Speaking of movement, Nimble is finally returning to its pre-2020 glory, with the scaling going up from 7% a level to 10% a level. Mobility is coming back. Really looking forward to this, especially on Terminus. Continuing items is Boring Guardian. The effectiveness of the shields you create is getting buffed from 8% to 10% scaling. I'm sure the Aegis players are frothing at the mouth with this. Kill to Heal is getting a slight nerf, with the healing going down from 250 scaling to 200 scaling. Fair change given the really strong buff it got last patch. Master Riding is surprisingly getting nerfed. The mount speed bonus is being lowered from 15% scaling to 10% scaling. The reason for this is because remounting mid-match will now be available, but only for payload. It does seem weird to nerf a whole item for a game mode that's not even fully in rotation, but I never use Master Riding, so I don't really care. Unfortunately, there are no changes to Haven or Veteran, so it looks like we'll still be dealing with that going into 2023. With items out of the way, we're going to talk about champion balance. I just want to say that these patch notes are very messy. You'll see why soon enough. First is Androxus with a talent change. Cursed Revolver is no more! The patch notes state that Andro's new talent, Darkstalker, will grant him a 20% damage boost against targets with less than 50% HP. Of which I think is a horrible change. Androxus' weapon is already quite strong. The reason people complained about the current Cursed Revolver is because he doesn't need more weapon damage. Well, supposedly, the devs agree, because in one of the builds for the PTS, Androxus had a different Darkstalker talent. That version of the talent separated Andro's nether steps, giving each of them their own cooldown, allowing for more agency with his movement. I like this talent idea a lot better than flat out buffing Andro's damage again. Let's hope that version of the talent goes through. Next up is Azan with a buff to the Tempering talent. The cooldown increase you incur from picking the talent is going from 50% to 25%. This means that Reckoning and Conviction go from a 15 to a 12.5 second cooldown, and Sanctuary goes from a massive 21 second cooldown to a 17.5 second cooldown. Now the talent might see some use. Conviction gets buffed pretty nicely with the talent, so it might be worth picking so you could free up some loadout slots. Dredge is up next with 2 movement buffs. Expansive Vault, the card that grants you increased jump height after using Shortcut, is getting a very nice buff. The base time limit is being upped from 1 to 2.5 seconds. The card was already great as just a filler, but now it's even better. Seriously, you don't even have to level this card up. 2.5 seconds is more than enough time. The second card change is to Crow's Nest. This is the card that allows Dredge to sticky jump with Broadside. The scaling knockback is being increased from 100 to 150. Super excited to try this out next patch. Crow's Nest is very underpicked, but I feel that if mastered, you could muster insane mobility with Dredge. The unfortunate fact is that most Dredge players would rather focus on reload spam with Scuttle. Kasumi up next with nerfs, maybe? What is this? Nerfs incoming in a future update. Why even bother writing this note? Okay, so as of the latest PTS, apparently the primary fire on Yokai Doll is going to require a separate button input per attack, meaning you can no longer hold the attack button and guarantee damage once an opponent is in sight. On the one hand, Kasumi's Yokai Doll is very frustrating to fight, so nerfs are welcome. On the other hand, constantly clicking the button is extremely irritating. My carpal tunnel is not gonna like that. Like I said in another video, I think Kasumi needs a soft rework. Next up is Ying, with a revert to one of the dumbest balance changes from 2020. After 3 years, Ying's illusion healing is going from 400 back to 420, baby! We won! The Resonance Ying cult has won! So, our last set of changes, and the most confusing, encompasses 4 support champions with the new talent passives. The first passive is Curative, which grants you a 20% bonus to your healing. The second passive is Remedy, which grants you 10% bonus healing and 5% bonus damage. And last is Surgery, where you gain 10% damage. These new passives are accompanied by sweeping nerfs to the base kits of the champions affected. Changes like nerfs to Pyre Blade, Kindle Soul, Pyre Strike, and Inflame to compensate. Okay, that was pretty vague. Let's see who else. Other number adjustments to compensate. Where are my numbers, Evil Moji? I need my numbers! Furia, Grok, Grover, and Pip are getting this treatment. Only them, which makes the idea of sweeping support changes even more confusing. The idea is that these 4 supports will lose a significant chunk of power in their base kit, but then gain a portion of it back via one of their talents. I have to say, at first I was skeptical, but I've come to disdain the idea of these support changes completely. I've said it before, but I'm not a fan of nerfing the base kit of a champion just to prop up a talent, and these passives are essentially that mentality put to the max. The devs hint that this was done to combat the double support meta, which isn't really a problem outside of the ranked scene. Do we really need to be rebalancing 4 characters so drastically solely for our minuscule ranked scene? And besides, there are healthier ways to address the double support meta, like, I don't know, addressing Haven Veteran? Another reason I don't like these changes is because they're so confusing from a numbers standpoint. The numbers we know, at least. There are no numbers in these patch notes. But one change that was present in the PTS was Furia's Kindle Soul Healing having the burst lowered from 1000 to 850. First off, it's been 1000 burst healing since Furia's inception, and now that's lowered, which is so annoying, confusing, why? But picking Cherish will cause the Kindle Soul to now heal for 935 up front, which is a massive nerf to the talent due to the bonus healing now having a smaller value to scale from. Picking Solar Blessing, on the other hand, bumps your healing up by 20%, so now Kindle Soul will heal for 1020 health up front. Again, just confusing numbers. I think the best example of how confusing this will be is Grok, which, keep in mind, we don't know the extent of his changes yet because bad patch notes. In the PTS, Maelstrom has the Surgery passive, which grants a 10% bonus to damage. Okay, Maelstrom as it is already buffs the starting damage of Lightning Staff from 70 to 75. So with Surgery, will that starting damage actually be 82, or is it still 75 as stated in the talent's description? Also, the idea of buffing the damage on Maelstrom should be a massive red flag. Overall, these passives are so confusing to me as a veteran player. Imagine a newbie playing Paladins for the first time and being overwhelmed with this mismatch of info, since the numbers from the ability descriptions won't match what's going on in-game. I remember reading a comment that said these support changes are trying to make other champions feel like Lilith in terms of talents, where each has a downside. And to that I say, please, no. Lilith is the one champion I want to play without a talent because all her options suck. Please do not subject other supports to that torture. Alrighty, that's where I'm going to leave this patch review. Sorry to be such a downer, but outside of payload returning, this patch has very little to look forward to in my eyes. What are your thoughts on the upcoming Emergence patch? I'd love to know. Make sure to stay tuned for my next balance comparisons video when that patch drops. Don't forget to clap that like button and laser down that sub button. Snatching the bell is also a great way to stay in the loop. As always, I'm YellowNinja, and peace.